Hello and welcome back to HCS Weekly, your destination for all things HCS. I'm your host, Shyway. And guys, you already know what's up. You saw that 15-minute montage, but today's episode is going to be legendary. I'm so happy to have this man on stream. Snip3down is an amazing player and an icon in the Halo community, as you know. So it's going to be so exciting. But one disclaimer beforehand, know that this interview is pre-recorded. I talked about this last week on last episode that we had some technical difficulties with the interview. So the first half of the interview is pre-recorded from last week. The second half of the interview is pre-recorded from earlier today. And honestly, coming off of that interview just an hour ago, I got to say it was so much fun. I'm excited. I can't wait for you guys to enjoy this. So there won't be a live chat answer, like question and answer, but I'll be in the live chat, guys. You can talk to me instead, but enjoy. It's going to be a great time. Real quick though, because it is the HCS Weekly, we might as well go over some HCS news as well. And Tony, I know you got a graphic for the qualifying teams for HCS Atlanta. You guys know HCS Atlanta is coming up in November 16 to 18. So we are getting so close down to the wire, the last big Halo event. Let's run through these teams as well. We got Tox, Splice, Reciprocity, Renegades, Accelerate, Elevate, Trifecta, Mentality, Straight Rippin', LTN, Shock the World, and Down Under. These are your 12 qualified teams. Of course, this is an open bracket as well, so anybody can join and have a shot at victory. Tony, throw it back up one more time. I want to highlight Straight Rippin', the first European Straight Rippin' team. Look at that roster. We've got Respectful, Mose, Kimbo, and Snip3down. That's pretty exciting. I'm hoping these guys play big. They go hard. There's another graphic right there looking awesome. So exciting to see Straight Rippin' playing from a European squad this time around as well. I hope there's some upsets. Of course, we got a lot going on in Halo and with Call of Duty and people shifting their focus around. So there could be a lot of upset potential this time around. And of course, there's the 2v2 happening as well. If you're a fan of Classic Halo, you get your dose of Classic Halo at Atlanta also. And some big teams announced. Just two of them are actually Ghost Ayami, Captain Anarchy, and Roy and Flame Sword. So those are some pretty awesome teams to look forward to. Some of the awesome personalities in Halo. But let's get right into this interview without further ado. There's a lot we're going to cover today. I'm excited to bring to you Snip3down. Snip3down, how's it going, man? Honestly, I need to say two thank yous, okay? The first thank you is just thank you for being on the show. You're honestly you're an icon in competitive Halo. And the second thank you is thank you on behalf of thousands of people in the Halo community that you personally inspired to even get into Halo in the first place. That Straight Rippin' montage that I watched 9 years ago was the reason why I got into Halo. It was one of the coolest, it still is one of the coolest videos on the internet. So honestly, man, your gameplay is inspiring. Thank you for being a part of this and a part of HCS Weekly. Hope you're doing well, man. How's it going? How's your day going?
Yeah, day's going well. Yeah, thank you for the kind words. Honestly, it really is cool to hear things like that. I've been hearing it for years now, and just even still hear that today after so long of being in the scene, it still means a lot to me. So I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you, man. And I want to go all the way back because you got one hell of a career here. You got 10 years in competitive Halo, which is pretty unreal. You started in 2008. Your career goes 10 years back. So you have one of the longest, even now, you're one of the longest standing pros in competitive Halo, and you're still playing on the top of your game. So how did it all begin? Even with gaming, how did you get into gaming? How did you discover Halo?
Well, I suppose I kind of got dragged into it by some middle school and high school buddies. Started back in 2002 is when it really all began. I had a bunch of friends, and Halo was the cool game, the cool kid game at the time. And I didn't even own an Xbox or anything. It just got kind of recruited because they needed extra people to fill up their basement LANs. Because my friend, his name is Grant Chapman, always had 8 to 16 people over at his house after school days to just come over, and he was the engineer that would just get everyone together, and you'd have cords all over the place, and it was just kind of all right. I picked up the controller, and apparently I was a natural, and Grant and the rest of his friends, because they were the best kids in the school at the time, basically forced my parents to buy me an Xbox because I was really good at the start, and they were just you need to play, you need to come over more often, and it just kind of became a common thing. Pretty much every week I was going over to their house and playing some Halo 1.
Yeah, there's always that one guy who is doing the basement LANs, who puts together these massive basement LANs. From everybody else that interview, it's always yeah, we would play LANs. The history of competitive Halo was always so sick. Even for me as a kid in Halo 2, playing in basement LAN type events. But are you saying that did you not have gaming experience coming into Halo? How old were you when you first discovered it? And is it your first time on a gamepad, or did you play other games?
Well, I mean, I played a lot of 007 GoldenEye, and that was basically the only game that I had played a lot of, other than Super Smash Brothers. But in terms of shooting games or FPS, anything like that. No, that was the first game that I really played and got into. And GoldenEye was all messed up in terms of controls. I mean, that game, I just played the campaign. I never really played multiplayer or anything like that. But yeah, Halo was the first FPS I really got into, and I always enjoyed GoldenEye. I was actually really solid at that game as well. I remember like the Boys and Girls Club of America and playing with kids that are like 4 or 5 years older than me and beating them all, and they were all freaking out because I'm the young kid and it makes no sense. And it was like an alpha of the building. So I just really always enjoyed those style of games the most.
Damn, that's unreal. So you just kind of picked it up with Halo. You just had a knack for it to the point where you're friends. Because usually it's like, okay, I got to get an Xbox. But your friends are like, all right, we got to get this guy an Xbox. He's this good. So then you discover Halo, right? It's awesome. You start grinding and you go to your first event, which is MLG Meadowlands 2008. And you place 7th, which is unreal. And not only that, your next event after that, you're teaming with Roy and Lunch. You place 2nd. The next event after that, you place 1st, and then you place 1st again. So what happened? Like, how do you manage a feat like this? Is this a surprise for you? Was there something like some sort of an experience that you had before these events that let you know that it was going to go this well? Or so let me know.
Yeah, the first year of my competitive career was definitely a wild ride. I had been to a ton of locals before that, and I had teamed with semi-good players. Never really anything too crazy, but the locals kind of got me a little more experience to be out in the field instead of just sitting in my basement and competing online. But I mean, to be honest, I had been playing Halo 2 all the time against top players, and I think the first few times I was playing against top professionals in Halo 2, I was nervous playing against them. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going against the best players. And after that, when I started getting comfortable, because I started getting invited to really good lobbies and Halo 2, high rank, that's pretty much all you match was top pro players and the, team hardcore players. And I think I got a lot of those nerves out during that time frame. So when I finally was able to compete in Halo 3 and went to my first tournament, I was just more so excited and ready to compete on the big end. I actually didn't end up playing on main stage at Meadowlands where I got space. But, overall, just felt very comfortable. Had a lot of teammates who were my friends, and it made it easy because we had all talked about, teaming together. Even in Halo 2, it just never ended up working out. And then 7th place, my first event, I remember I almost stayed on that team after the event, and when Instinct asked me if I wanted to join, and they were, Eli and Gunshot were both just like, no, you need to go. Like it was a good friend type of thing to do. Yeah. I was definitely surprised at how quickly things escalated in terms of my career, but I always felt like I was a top player dating all the way back to Halo 2 when I really first started getting invited to pro lobbies. And I remember the first time I outperformed a ton of professionals at the time, and I remember Strong Side added me to his friends list and messaged me. It was just like, he just messaged me and said I was really good, and that just obviously made my day at the time because these are players that I was looking up to. And, I started getting into better lobbies at the time and started competing against these top players. And at first I was extremely nervous playing against these, top professionals. But over time, when I started playing with them more often, it just became more comfortable. And, you get better with the better people you play against. So it just kind of got to the point where I was competing at a top level with these players and felt like I was outperforming a lot of them at the time. And, I never went to any Halo 2 tournaments, but by the time Halo 3 events finally came around, I was about as stoked as I could possibly be getting to team with players in Halo 2 that I had wanted to. Eli and Gunshot specifically were 2 players that I had played with a lot back in Halo 2, and they had good event experience at the time. I had become friends with them, and, they were also players that, helped me get into these lobbies as well. Yeah. And so when the first event comes around, my team was Ambush. We ended up getting 7th place. It was me, Eli, Gunshot, and Silent. And I remember after the tournament, I got a lot of recognition at that tournament because I had always been considered like the online warrior, et cetera, in Halo 2. And to go to my first tournament and get a high placing, I had a lot of eyes on me. And I remember Instinct, they lost Victory X, and I had gone to a local with Elamite Warrior, Puss in Boots, who was another player that had, even preached to my parents to try and help me get to these tournaments because my parents weren't very on board with it either. And
really,
he was super helpful, and he came over and met my parents and specifically was like, your son's got something here and you should really let him go to these tournaments. He was a bit older. He was like 3 years older than me. And, he basically told my parents, like, he'll drive with me, he'll fly with me, he'll basically be like my chaperone almost to help my parents be more comfortable with the whole situation. And, it really did help. I don't think my parents would have let me go had they not, felt comfortable with the people that I was going with because they were very new to the whole situation. And, I get picked up on Instinct. because at this local, I remember Elamite Warrior, specifically after the tournament was over, had told Puss in Boots, or Justin at the time, that if anything ever happened to Straight Rippin', that I'd be the first person that they'd pick up, which was really cool. And you know, I'd only been to one tournament, so to hear something like that from someone as good as Elamite, who had been, you know, competing and had won tournaments, was incredible. And you know, I remember after Instinct had lost Victory, Elamite went specifically to Macchio and said, "You need to pick up Snip3down. Like, you're basically an idiot if you don't." And it was between me and Hokum, who was also a top, you know, I was a pro name at the time, and for them to pick up a no name at the time in Halo 2 when pro points were everything, and you know, having a title was very important at the time. It was a risk for them, and you know, it paid off. We got second place. It was, I think, everyone on the team's best placing. Although after the tournament, I got dropped about 5 minutes before the deadline, and you know, I got picked up by Chiggers Down. They were basically forced to pick me up. We end up, you know, being a very skilled roster. It was me, Fear Itself, Hysteria, and SK, and we ended up winning the tournament, the next tournament in Orlando. Little for me to end up leaving the team after that because of internal issues, and there were talks of me getting dropped again. I don't know if I was just like not a good teammate internally or something, or what it was, but apparently all these teams wanted to drop me. But yeah, so I ended up joining Straight Rippin'. There was an opening on their team. Neighbor left for Final Boss, and you know, just ended up I ended up teaming with Straight Rippin' for the next 2 years, I believe. But it was definitely interesting being on 4 separate teams in my first 4 tournaments when I started my career.
Yeah, dude, that's unreal. I mean, I would only think like it's almost like threatening in a way too. Because like, how old were you? Like 15, 16 at the time?
I had just turned 17, I think, at my very first tournament. I'm pretty sure my birthday was like a week before the tournament. So started a little later, I suppose. I was never able to go to Halo 2 tournaments. I was supposed to go to a Halo 2 tournament, but my ride, who had promised he was going to pick me up, bailed on me the day before the tournament, so I had no way of getting there.
Yeah, but you were no stranger to grinding up until that point. So it was Halo 2 was the game that you really kind of like broke out and built the connections. Was it, you said Team Hardcore was like the playlist? Was the one that like struck? Yeah. Was that the biggest playlist?
Yeah, Halo 2, the ranking system in Halo 2 was just so difficult. I mean, there were cheaters, modders, nonstop, and for you to be able to get a high rank in that game, you know, you could get as high as you want and then lose one game and you're back to the beginning of that level. So you had to win a lot of games to level up. And once you get to a certain rank, you're basically just matching the top players nonstop at that point. So I developed a bit of a reputation of being an online warrior. I remember specifically in a midship King of the Hill game, it was like a 3v3 and I had host and I was just pink 3 all game against like Shockwave, Gandhi, and one other player, maybe Ghost. And I went like 52 and 14 or something, and I just remember Shockwave just sending me hate messages, like hardcore hate messages after that, and I'm just laughing the whole time, and he's just saying things like, "You can't talk to me whenever you have more pro points." He's like, "When you have more pro points than me, you can talk to me." And I remember like a year later, after like my first 2 or 3 Halo 3 tournaments, I had more pro points than him, and I brought it up to him. And he hated me for like the entire first year of Halo 3 until we started like actually becoming cool. But it was just one of those gotcha moments.
Yeah, man, Nick was saying something like that too, where it's like, you know, when you're on the come up in Halo, especially online, you start beating top players, like they will send you all the hate messages. Like they don't want you to, you know, have that opportunity to seem like you're going to take over. Like Halo, you know, especially with a competitive game like Halo. But I guess, you know, you were the online warrior. Everybody was like, what can Snip3down do? And you come out, you play 7th in your first event. Like this year was a roller coaster, man. So let's fast forward a bit to 2014 now. You're on Evil Geniuses. And this was your biggest, most dominant roster that I think you've been with as far as first place finishes. Because throughout the entirety of H2A, you won almost every single tournament with EG. And then Halo 5 kicks off. Things are still looking promising with EG. And then Lethal leaves the squad. He moves over to CLG. So at the time, the broadcasters were saying there was like a rivalry that was being developed between you and Lethal. What I want to know is this true? Is this something that was like fabricated, like, but you know, by the internet? And is there a rivalry between you and Neighbor, like back in the day as well? Because both of these guys called you out, and you shut down both of these guys. And there's actually a video that we can show. Let's actually roll the video. We're going to react to it first, and then I want to ask you this question.
Right now, I'm seeing that smile out of you. Now, to keep smiling, what are you going to have to do to Final Boss? Who do you need to shut down? I guess we're going to shut down Neighbor. We're going to shut them all down. So we'll just keep doing that. And of course, Snip3down, how are you going to do that? How are you going to shut down Neighbor? He is absolutely on fire right now. I mean, we're just going to take them out of the game. We're all going to be playing our best, and our best is better than their best, so we'll win this game.
Hey, neighbor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, so how's it going? How you feeling coming into this event?
Oh, I'm really nervous and scared because, you know, Snip3down is like the best player, and it makes it really tough. It's hard to focus when he's playing. He's just so sick.
A little sarcasm there from neighbor. I gotta like that.
All right, neighbor. Well, what do you think about Snip3down saying he's going to shut you down? I'm worried. I can't wait.
How old are you?
Neighbor, always sarcastic.
You know?
Now, neighbor.
If there's one player on EG that you feel you need to shut down, who is that player?
Probably Snip3down. He's like the best player. He's just so sick. You know, I get really worried when I see him, and you know, it's just the stuff he does is insane.
All right. Well, any words here, Snip3down?
I remember what happened last time. That exact quote was said to me. So watch your face.
All right. Well, Eric, there were some words exchanged before the interview, during the interview with Lethal. Tell me, I mean, Walshy made a few comments about how you do not want to fire you up. You don't want to strike a match to gasoline. How fired up were you in that first series, in the first game?
I told him before it started, the last person that said that to me lost the series, and they lost the series too. So if you're going to talk trash, better back it up, and we took that series home.
Better back it up. So are these real rivalries that like, was it just like something that like MLG was creating? Like they put them on the spot and the neighbor's like, all right, I'm going to call it Snip3down, or were you guys like exchanging words like outside of that, or?
Not really so much outside. I definitely think Mason was not a fan of me at the time, just because I think I was new on the scene, and Neighbor had kind of just gotten a lot of hype and attention surrounding him for the previous, like at the end of Halo 2 and then the beginning of Halo 3. And I think when I came into the scene, I kind of took that from him, and it might have been a little bit of like a lashing out of that, just kind of like, I don't know, jealousy maybe in a sense at the same time. But that didn't really continue, I don't think, throughout Halo 3. And then Mason and I we're very cool now. We hung out in Seattle not too long ago. TJ and I, definitely there was some bad blood there. I created a YouTube video talking about it just because I was like, we all felt super blindsided with the situation. You know, I mean, you could watch the YouTube video. I mean, you could see how upset I am. Right. It's because of just like, I don't care about the decision that was made. It's how it was done. And I don't think like calling people your friends, I don't know. I always, Halo is a relationship, and it's like any other relationship, or if you have issues, you talk about those issues. Otherwise they just go on and it just causes bigger issues. And I don't think being blindsided like that 3 days before, the biggest tournament of all of our lives is very friendly in any way whatsoever. But I mean, I always respect people doing what they think is best for them. And that's one thing that like, I don't hold over him, because I mean, he did what he felt was best, and obviously it paid off for him. So, it's just, my opinion was a very selfish way of going about it. But that's the only real reason there was a rivalry there, is just because I was always a little upset with how things were handled in that situation. I don't necessarily think that, there's like any bad blood, or like I don't dislike TJ, and I know he doesn't really dislike me, but there's always that competitive rivalry that we will have against each other for sure.
Yeah, you want to beat each other. And I mean, it makes sense. Like you were saying, it's like a family, a team, right? Even back when you're talking about teaming with Hysteria, like chemistry is so important. If you don't have that chemistry, it doesn't even matter if you're all individually gods. Like you have to enjoy spending time with each other, enjoy playing together and all that. So the fact that he blindsiding you is unfortunate, but you pressed on, and these rivalries, these guys saying like, oh, Snip3down's, he's too good, whatever. You took that and you completely confronted that, and just, you use that as a weapon to take these guys out. So is this like, when you're placed in a situation like that, when, these guys are kind of calling you out, does that give you more energy, more, encouragement to kick their ass, or what?
Yeah, I think there's a stigma around people who talk trash. To me at tournaments, I've always just,
this is the thing, right? This is like,
it's been a thing for a while now. I remember back in, I think it was either Halo Reach or Halo 4, where Ninja's team or something had talked trash to me, and I ended up just tearing through them to a point where they specifically would yell at their teammates for yelling at me to get me fired up, because they were like, don't talk trash to Eric. He's like, this is like, it's not the person you do it to. I think that has become a thing for me. I don't know if I just get like it just pumps more adrenaline into me. It just makes me want to do better, but it definitely is a thing. It just gets me fired up, and I kind of laugh at trash talk, but it still gets me going for sure.
I mean, that's all we need for Atlanta now. We just need like Lethal or somebody to be like, that down sucks, and then there you go, Reciprocity wins the. Yeah, that would be freaking awesome. But and that's something I want to talk about too, because your background in Halo 5, you have been like at the top of the heap. You've been so close to that #1 position. So you didn't stick around in EG too long after the roster change. Unfortunately, you moved over to Envious, and you guys created what was like a god squad at the time with Hook, Mikwin, and Ola. And these guys were designed to destroy Optic Gaming. At one point, you did do that in HCS Fall Finals 2017. You took the top spot. And then since that, Envy later broke up. You formed Reciprocity. You had a team in Reciprocity that did break up, and now you have your current Reciprocity roster. And since it feels like you've been so close to the very heap, like second place narrowly, third place narrowly, do you ever get tired of placing those positions? Is your drive to be #1 still stronger than ever? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that Envy roster, we beat them 2 different times, I believe, in 2 best-of-7s where we had to come back and take the win, and it was always super intense going against that team, but that Optic team still always seemed to have the advantage against us. We'd beat them in 2 close series, and then they would stomp us 4-0 at the next tournament. So there definitely became some internal issues on that MV roster. We ended up splitting, going separate ways, and then Hook ended up going back to Call of Duty. And ever since then, it's just been kind of that Splice roster formed, and then it's just been kind of a free-for-all and kind of figuring out what the best rosters are internally, and what play styles work the best together. And right now, my team is very, we're all friends, and it's really fun to play with these guys. We really enjoy playing with each other, and, it helps. But that drive and that passion to get first place has definitely not hindered at all. I'm way too competitive of a person to ever accept anything less than first place as a success. Nice. And, for us specifically, that's the goal all the time. And, if I ever get to that point where it's okay to place anything but first, I'm done. Like, it's just, I'm not playing for the right reasons anymore, and I'll pursue something else in my career. So, that passion is still there, and it's been there for, the entirety of my gaming career. And even before that, when I was just playing in, intramural sports.
Yeah, honestly, man, your passion, I definitely see it too. Like, you've been grinding harder than anybody. It seems like you're still streaming as well, which is amazing. Thank you so much for continuing to contribute to the community, especially on Twitch. Things are, a little bit rough now on Halo Twitch, but you're still streaming, you're still grinding, you're scrimming. Are you even playing Black Ops 4 at all? Have you even touched it at all, or like you 100% focus on Halo still? Have you messed around with it?
I casually play like Fortnite, and I play Blackout on Black Ops, but I haven't touched the multiplayer. I think I played 1 game of the multiplayer, got rocketed on spawn and quit out. And I decided I was just like, I'm just going to stick with the Battle Royale and focus mainly on this last Halo 5 tournament. And, that's where I've been putting most of my time and effort into. And, there's 1 event left, so I'm going to do whatever I can to win that final tournament. And I'd love to go out at the final H5 event and be like, yeah, my team is the best. So it'd be really cool to have that notch, I guess, right there to go out as on top. And I haven't really put any thought into competing in any other games. I'm at that point now where it's kind of we're going to see what's next with Halo. We've heard a little bit maybe with MCC, maybe some Halo 3 tournaments, which would be it'd be cool to play in those, but that's not necessarily something I'm gonna really rely on and put 120% effort into, because who knows how those tournaments are going to be, prize pools, etc. But I think it'll still be really cool to see what is to come. And, right now my main focus is definitely just closing out this final H5 tournament in Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure. Like, a lot riding on that final event. And is there anything that you think gives like your team Reciprocity an edge over the competition coming into this last event? I know you guys said you were all really close.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the one thing that really gives us an edge is that we all still have that, fire. A lot of these teams, Splice, a lot of them are playing Call of Duty, really focusing on this tournament. They haven't played. I don't even think they've scrimmed in the last 2 tournaments. We saw them lose the last event, which is, the first time that's happened in, 4 events. Tox isn't playing as much. I mean, that just comes along with the fact that, a lot of teams aren't playing right now. It really seems like us and Tox are the only 2 teams that are consistently playing and trying to find, practice as often as possible. So I really do think this last event is going to be the closest one yet. And it's just going to be really cool to see what ends up happening. And I'm really hoping that there's going to be some great matches, some upsets, and it's going to be possibly reinvigorate a little bit of the competitive life, hopefully leading into some more future tournaments.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I definitely see that as well. Like, I think, yeah, Splice has their split focus. Other teams are falling apart. Like Trifecta had the roster, issue recently, and Elevate recently formed. So you have a lot of teams kind of just jumping together last minute. But Reciprocity has stayed strong. You guys have been grinding, you've been scrimming. Honestly, I really think you guys got a shot at taking this. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen because of everything that's going on with Call of Duty. I feel like you're right. Like we could get upsets. We could get insane Game 5 situations. So we're at that point now, dude. We're at the end of Halo 5, and now we're kind of looking on into the future and trying to figure out what's going to happen next. But what do you think about Halo 5? Looking back on it in the past 3 years in comparison to other Halos. I know that recently you had a tweet. We'll show that in a second, but for now, what do you think of Halo 5?
I think Halo 5 is going to go down as the Halo that had the most potential to be one of the best competitive Halos, but wasn't. I think the game is honestly really good at its core, but there were so many coding issues and underlying issues. I was thrusting into walls to get sticky grenades off me. My nades and rockets were being shot into maps. My melees were stopping short. Just so many things. Bullets just phasing through people constantly. Just a lot of things that took away from the competitive aspect of what made Halo great. And then, you add all these abilities, there's 8 different abilities you can use to get away from someone now. And it's just that's too much. And you talk about, they wanted to implement this new casual style to the game where you have plasma weapons that don't just take your shields down fast, but kill you fast, which has never been a thing for any plasma weapon ever in any Halo. So that blew my mind. And then you add all these abilities, which increase the skill gap to an insane high level. So it's okay, you're adding weapons to please the casual community, but you add all these insane abilities that increase the skill gap. So it doesn't matter what these casuals pick up, the better player is just still going to outskill. And it just created this huge gap in the community. I think it created an even bigger gap in the competitive and casual community because of this extreme abilities that they added. Halo 3, it's everyone loved that game because it was simple. Adding more and making things more complicated doesn't mean it doesn't make anything better. It really I think games need to be simple, and I think they need to be appealing in that aspect. And I think Halo 5 had a lot of options that could have been tweaked. There were 2 world championships with radar and ARs, and I think that really was an issue. And like I said, the potential was there with this game. And at the end of Halo 5, I think we have a good game. I think with a lot of these other abilities, the radar is better. It's an improvement. Still not a fan of radar at all in general. I just don't agree with the awareness factor of being a professional needing to have something like a handicap to help you out. That's the whole point of being a professional. It's you have that awareness, and your positioning is supposed to be all natural, not influenced by a handicap that tells you where people are at. I really just, like I said, I just feel like it's going to go down as the Halo with the most potential that ended up being one of the weaker competitive titles because of everything else that was added.
And we're back 1 week later. Of course, as I said in the beginning, guys, we had a couple technical difficulties last week running this interview. Snip3down, thank you so much. You were nice enough to come back and be flexible. And just to pick up right where we left off, you were talking about your opinion on Halo 5. The fact that Halo 5 was kind of this game with tons of potential that didn't really realize that potential. It had so many abilities. It had a bunch of problems that need to be fixed. We had 2 years worth of tournaments with radar and ARs and a lot of other issues, and even issues that you're still experiencing today. So let's just kind of run back over a little bit of that again. So what do you think? Halo 5, tons of potential, didn't really kind of follow through.
Yeah, I mean, Halo 5 just has all these customizable options. We were given all these possibilities to tweak the settings, and it just kind of felt like we never really went through that phase of tweaking settings appropriately competitively. Halo 3 at the start, you think about it, and it had bubble shields and energy drainers and all these shield respawners, and that was minimal extras of the game, and those were taken out right away because they were just deemed uncompetitive. And that was something that had really good feedback. That's why we got our own playlist, and it had a ton of support behind it. But Halo 5 came out, and out of the box, it was basically told to us right away that we're trying to make this as casual as possible. We had radar, ARs and 2 world championships with radar and ARs, and the most money ever thrown into Halo. And it was just like, all right, we have these new settings, and I understand they want to get everyone involved, but there are just tons of glitches in the game. We had heavy aim that we were basically told we're crazy to think that there is heavy aim in the game, only to then realize about 2 years later that this is a thing. That everyone is just like head casing constantly over this, and that's just something right away that just causes issues on the competitive level. A lot of, I guess, mental annoyances in a sense. Then you have things like thrusting into walls to get plasma grenades off of you, ground pounds and Spartan charges that are just these abilities that are just manipulated very easily, and it just felt like the game wasn't as competitively used. We had one of the biggest things that I disliked was the fact that we had storm rifles and stuff like these plasma weapons that in every other Halo was great to get shields off. Plasma pistol's always been like an iconic weapon, new combo back in Halo 2. But this weapon was only to get your shields off. You couldn't kill someone with it. It was impossible. It was like impossible to kill someone with it. Then you have a storm rifle that not only melts your shields instantly, you die like almost as soon as your shields are gone. And there's like headshot multipliers, etc. And then you have like a brute plasma rifle that takes 3 shots and it shoots as fast as possible. 3 shots and you melee someone and they're dead. Or it was even like 2 shots in a melee, but 3 shots got your shields off. It was just unusual things added to the game. It just made kill times really fast, and it just felt like the game had all this potential to become an extremely good competitive title, and it just wasn't. The game wasn't changed the way that it could have been, and I feel like it really will go down as a game with a ton of potential, because honestly, it's a really fun game. I do enjoy playing Halo 5 just because not because everyone like knocks on it all the time. The game is good at its core, but I just feel like it could have been way better.
Yeah. You made a great point about the fact that like they tried to appeal with casuals, especially with the weapons and the abilities like Spartan Charge, Ground Pound that they added into the game. But then at the same time, a lot of these abilities also heightened the skill gap as well. It made the game very competitive too. So it was confusing because it's like they throw in these weapons and they allow you to mow people down, but because of the abilities, the better players are still going to be the better players. They're going to wreck these guys regardless of what weapons they have. So really all they're doing is creating these huge competitive imbalances that just aren't fun. And the fact that they couldn't respond quickly enough, that's the frustrating thing. Like you said, Halo 3, they had the bubble shields, they had the equipment, they respond quickly. The entire competitive scene happened without it, which is great, but Halo 5, 2 years with ARs, it's unacceptable, right? So, and it's understandable that the community kind of started to deteriorate in some ways, but it sucks because I agree, man. I think that at the core, Halo 5 is actually a really mechanically solid game. It feels great to play. It has a lot of depth, a lot of competitive elements that are really exciting and deserve that recognition. So finally, we're at this point where we've leaned it out. And it's more like a lean, ruthless, competitive version of the game at this point with just magnums off the start. You have no more autos. It feels like the best it's ever been, but now it's over basically. So it's almost as if it's like a too little, too late type of situation. We kind of saw that with Halo Reach, where Halo Reach had Bloom and all these new mechanics that have not been a thing. Sprint and Bloom, and at the end in the tournament, like numbers had declined throughout the entirety of Halo Reach, and then they finally change it to where it's no Bloom, no Sprint, and all of a sudden everybody comes back because it's like, this is what we wanted, this is what we know, this is Halo. And you think about Halo 5 and it's like what you talked about. You give pro players, let's see, I almost just want to like count it out. You have like Sprint, Spartan Charge, Ground Pound, Slide, like Clamber, Stabilize, Thrust. That's 7 right there, and then you add Spring Jump. That's 8 abilities basically right there that allow top competitors and top caliber players to abuse and manipulate at a higher level than these casuals. So that gap just goes just like we were talking about. So I mean, it's like, okay, yes, we can appeal to casuals, but when these casuals play better players, they're so much worse that it's almost as if like they never want to play that playlist again because they're thinking, I can't compete with this, and I never will be able to. And it's like Halo 3, it's like you spawn, and no matter what, your Spartan is the same as every other Spartan on the map. And there's nothing that it's about shooting your weapon and positioning. And those are 2 things that I've always been a huge advocate about, is positioning. And now they add a radar to the game where one of the most important skills of being a pro player is your awareness and positioning. And now I can manipulate a little thing on my screen that tells me where the enemies are at, to a point where it's like I don't have to have as much awareness as I should as a professional
It just like, I don't need a handicap, like that's what I've honed for 10 years. Why am I given a handicap in a game that, to be a professional, you should have on your own?
Yeah, no, you made a great point about the radar. And I still think to this day, it would be interesting to see how the game played without it. Even though it is really fast paced, you have a lot of abilities, players kind of flying around. You're right, though. The top level players, they have the awareness. They don't really need to look at that radar anymore. They know how the map flows, where players are on the map, where their teammates are. Even the radar, it has the markers for your teammates as well, right? So there's so many little handicaps that you gain from it. So I do think that it would be nice to see what it would be like if it was even leaner in that aspect. They remove that radar as well. But now that they have kind of cut out these abilities like Spartan Charge, Ground Pound, do you think that thrust and slide have a place in competitive Halo in the future of Halo? How much do you think they would need to like retract from it going into Halo Infinite? Because it is still a very high skill floor, though I enjoy it a lot. Like once you master it, it's a lot of fun, but you want people to be able to jump in quickly. Yeah.
No, I think that there's a good balance between the two, extremes. We went from having no abilities to all of a sudden having 10. And it's like there's a balance there that can be utilized, because I do think games like, Halo 2 and Halo 3 would necessarily be stale in our current gaming like market. I do think it needs a little, there needs to be a little extra. So I've always said, I think clamber is unnecessary. I think it is an out for poor movement. I think if you miss your jump, you should fall off the map, just like on Lockout in Halo 2. It's like these are jumps that are, they're big jumps to make, and if you make it, you're making a play. If you miss it, then you're failing, and there's that risk. But now it's just like, oh, I missed my jump, let me just clamber up here. It's like, okay, yes, I understand Spartans probably should be able to do this based off of like strength, etc. But whatever. But I think thrust is a great mechanic. I think stabilize is cool. It allows for some cool angles, and I don't think sprint is necessary. I think a faster movement speed might be a good alternative, just to kind of balance that out as well. But, I don't want to see Spartan Charge. I don't want to see Ground Pound. I don't want to see these.
Of course not.
These like, I want to gifable and memeable like clips that are basically what they're there for. I feel like it's just like, oh yeah, watch this like Ground Pound something. It's like, okay, all right.
I mean, it works well for the whole Warzone type thing, but like from the competitive community, it needs to be lean from the get-go. Like I understand from like a mass appeal perspective why they have stuff like that. Like it looks badass if you play the game casually, but it just doesn't work at a competitive level well.
Yeah, that's why I just think competitively it just needs to be tweaked. Like settings just need to be tweaked quickly to allow for that. And it's just like, okay, this stuff can be in other playlists.
Yeah. The clamber is interesting, though, because I get what you're saying. I completely agree about the risk versus reward factor of trying to make a jump with a crouch jump. You miss that jump, you die, and you deserve that death, that punishment. And I mean, in Halo 5, that was even exacerbated by the fact that you had the stabilize and the ground pound. If you miss the ledge, you stabilize, you ground pound, you could stay out there for a hot like 5-6 seconds before you choose to thrust back on. But I love the clamber still because I have a whole video that's coming out today about it where you can drop back off a ledge, clamber back up immediately, and it creates this awesome like fake out mechanic where people are challenging back when they're not expecting the challenge, and that takes a lot of skill to implement. So it's like by removing clamber, you remove that sick aspect of the game too. So it's hard for me to part with it now that I noticed that.
I was actually having the argument with my team about kind of clamber and what it is, and just with Halo 5, the clamber is so glitched in the game, and this is just something that needs to be smoothed out if it is in the game. And it's something that like I think if there was one thing that I would take from Halo 5 to bring into the next game would be thrust, because I still think like especially if it's another single shot game, you need a movement, because everyone would be 5ing everyone in Halo 5 if there was no mechanics like that. It would just be constant 5 shots, and it'd be a lot different. But clambering in Halo 5 is so messed up. You clamber, and if you like move at all, your Spartan does a full 360, and it makes it look so weird. Like you can find clips. It's super janked up. Like I clamber, all of a sudden my Spartan does this like twirl, and it messes up the hitboxes, it messes up a ton of stuff. And I watch, especially in a single shot game, where someone's like Shotzi's doing this clamber, and I'm shooting and I'm just watching my bullets go straight through him because whatever the coding was there, it was messed up. And I even said something like, and it's even worse because as they clamber, they can shoot each time, so they can get a single shot off and it hits for them, but my shots go through them. So I said honestly, like, I think if Halo 5 already had a 3-year lifespan, then every single year should have been so much different in terms of what the settings were. Year one, we had radar and ARs. Next year, we should have removed all of that, had maybe the ability tracker radar, and then the third year, no radar. And then multiple different weapon tweaks along these 3 different sections to kind of keep it like, okay, let's mess with all this stuff and see what really happens with these pro teams, see what changes, etc. Talks for the first time beat Splice last event, and you could argue whether it was a lack of practice, etc., what it was. But ever since the settings had changed, Splice became the new team. Like it was that was the case. Like Optic, Talks, CLG, whatever you want to call them, they were dominant for 2 straight years on the same settings. And then the settings changed, and all of a sudden a team wins 3 events in a row. And it's like, okay, what if that happened right away after year one? What really would have happened with these competitive teams? Would they have stayed together if that was the case? Like, who knows what would have happened? And I do think, like I was saying, that with this whole clamber issue, like imagine BR starts, especially with the way they changed the spread, was the new starting weapon, and it would have changed the single shot weapon. It would have made cross map fighting different. It would have made people like play another more head-on style, because shooting cross map is difficult with the BR compared to one. All you have to do is hit one shot with a pistol. And that whole clambering glitch, which has been an issue from the very start, wouldn't be a thing, because I guarantee it, like 2 of my 3 shots might register on a guy that's clambering. And if he's clambering and has to like whip his shots a certain way, then it's going to be really difficult for him to hit all 3 of those burst shots while clambering and focusing on having to reclamber. So that kind of fixes that. I don't know. I just think if Halo 5 had such a long lifespan, the game should have been changed over and over and over again drastically each year. Yeah.
I mean, on top of the fact that the BR is actually a slower weapon, so even readying it up and hitting those shots might be harder to do immediately out of a clamber, whereas with the Magnum, it moves faster, like you can shoot faster at a sprint. I'm not really sure how it affects clamber as well. But the biggest point that you brought up that I really can't argue with is the fact that from the other side of the camera, from the other player's perspective, when you're fighting against Shotzi and he's doing those clambers, it looks freaking weird. Like, it looks janky. It looks like your bullets are phasing through them. And I can't even argue that. And that's the upsetting thing, is that I love these mechanics, and from first-person perspective, they make sense, they look badass, and they feel satisfying to pull off. But if you're on the other side, the receiving end of that, it looks janky, it's aggravating. So I feel like with Halo 5, the biggest thing they need to get right is if they're going to have a mechanic, if they're going to have a clamber, thrust, whatever, it needs to be smooth. It needs to be buttery smooth. The shots need to connect. We need to have, like, people will make excuses and people will get upset about things regardless. It's impossible to have a perfect game, but they really need to clean that stuff up and make it look cool from the other perspective as well. And I mean, that'll help everybody. Like, on top of the competitive community, it'll just look better when when you're watching that stuff happen in gameplay. You'll appreciate it more rather than be like, oh, this is a freaking glitch. Like, this didn't make sense, right?
Yeah. This is why I think Halo 5 or Halo in general needs hot fixes. Why? Yeah, it feels like Halo is the slowest competitive title at fixing in-game issues. And I'm comparing it to like a Call of Duty or even like a Fortnite, et cetera. Like, Fortnite came out with the zombies, and they were like, basically came out and said, we're going to force this down your throats almost. And then it got such a negative community backlash that at TwitchCon, where they had specifically said this is happening, they said, okay, we're going to take this out because it's something that we can't have with the community feedback, et cetera. So they didn't do it. And, we've had issues in Halo 5 from the very start that have taken or not even been fixed at all. It's just been certain issues. And it's like, I feel like that's a very important aspect to keep people wanting to play a game. So it doesn't feel like, it feels like they care just as much as we do. And that these issues are actually issues and not just, oh, you'll deal with it type of issues.
Yeah. Yeah, the standards today have changed for sure. Like, we're expecting games to constantly be updated on a consistent basis, right? I mean, the fact that people were upset about the idea of Halo being a live service in the future, like, not only is that predictable, but I hope what that means is that there's a constant connection between the community and the developers, and that they're constantly making these adjustments on the fly and fixing and improving the game at all costs. Because, I mean, COD has it now, Fortnite's had it. Like, it's the standard in games, and if you don't have it, you fall behind. And I mean, Halo's 3 years old right now, so maybe, you can kind of like, maybe that has something to do with it, but it's 2018, and that's what we're going to compare it to, is other 2018 titles, and it's just not acceptable at this point. So that's upsetting for sure. And I guess, and the other thing is the split focus too, right? The fact that they made mistakes in the past with MCC, and they're still trying to fix the mistakes in MCC, which splits their resources that could be spent on improving and updating Halo 5. So then we basically just get 2 games that the community isn't fully satisfied with at the moment. So like it's just, it sucks, because I think we all love Halo. We all want to see it thrive, and we see the potential. But they got to freaking capitalize with Infinite. Like, there's so much that they can gain from this if they hit it right, they hit their stride right. And even if they make mistakes, just fix the damn mistakes quickly, and we're happy. We're good. So
I mean, there's a passionate community behind Halo. So it's like these people play the game and they see these bugs because I mean it's hard to play test and figure out. There's always going to be bugs,
definitely.
But as long as they're talked about and responded to in an appropriate way, then it should be fixed. Like I'm still thinking about the fact that I press the start button and it makes my character glitch on my screen. And
start
the
button
fix
scoreboard needs to be removed. Like the fact that it holds your inputs down, that shit too. Like the scoreboard spring jump.
I can movement glitch with the scoreboard, and I can make my character, if I thrust slide and press start while I'm thrust sliding, my character will do this weird glitch like this on the screen.
Don't tell people this, okay?
There's 13 days left of this game, and I've been talking about this glitch for like a year now. It's literally been almost a year that I've been talking about this. And the fix for this was to make the scoreboard or the start button a 3-second delay. So instead of originally you could press start as you could do this and it would be so fast and your character would literally bug like this on the screen. It would just be this jitter. I have a clip of it. Like I have tons of clips of it in my DVR of just me like sending these. I remember when people would ground pound and you would just see the person rubber band about 6 times. Jesus. And the fix for it was to add the 3-second delay. So now you can only do it once. No real fix, just a simple solution to make it so you'll still glitch, just not as much as you used to. So it's just like, how is that? Yeah, like that's not even a fix. That's just like a patch that didn't fully. It's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid that's falling.
It's a Band-Aid. But what it says is that the company has so many different things that they're trying to do, so many different mistakes and things that they're trying to repair. And I mean, I respect the fact that they're trying to work hard, but like Band-Aids over all these problems is just going to create more problems in other areas and just dissatisfaction.
It makes me question the ability to find the solutions. Yeah. So like there's a solution there. There's a way to fix that. There's no way there's not, but it makes it seem like, so the issue was pressing start a bunch of times in a row. We'll add a 3-second delay, but that still adds the one rubber band in general that doesn't actually fix anything. So like it just makes me question, like there's got to be something in there that's like, this is why this is happening. Let's remove that and then fix it. It just like you said, Band-Aid. So
yeah, man. Yeah, and you had a tweet about another thing too about blank shots. Tony, you can throw that up as well. I'm thankful for what H5 has offered in terms of opportunity, but man, I can't wait to never play on this netcode again. We're a single shot dominant game. I get blank shots 50% of my fights. That's yeah. And what's that like? Because I feel like there are some shots where I feel like it's a blank. It's hard to really tell at the same time too. It's just in general, especially with the movement and the mechanics in the game, like you said, things looking janky. You don't really even know whether or not it's real or fake.
So yeah, I mean I watch tons of streams and I watch people get blanks all the time, and it happens on LAN. It just happens. Halo 3 there are blood shots, but that's also a projectile based game, and that's there is a lag delay there, and the lag delay is still existent on LAN, etc. But it is a projectile based in a hit scan based game that where if your aim is on someone, it counts if it's red. It should work, and you shouldn't get as often of blanks as you do. And I noticed this happens a lot. Have you ever gotten like a 6-shot perfect kill? Like in Halo 5?
Actually,
where it makes no sense. You're just like, how did I shot 6 shots? I missed a third shot in between there. That's because the third shot that you miss is a blank and it doesn't register on the coding. So that shot never happened, and it's a 5-shot. So it counts as a perfect. So it's just like, what was that a glitch in the?
That's actually
what
a great
was
example.
That? Like that's the question. That just doesn't make sense. And that whereas like I started figuring that out like probably a little over a year into the game, where I was just like, I'm getting a lot of these random 6-shot perfects. How is this a thing? And then and with a game with such high magnetism, where if you shoot like with your pistol, if it's anywhere near the guy, almost you get a hit marker, and that's why it's so
rings
easily
are touching, right?
Yeah, as long as the ring is like touching the Spartan at all before there are no shields, like you'll get a hit marker. Even I'm not sure what it's like after, but I've done a lot of just in game stand still. Let me see how far I can move my aimer off you to get a hit marker type of stuff. Right. And that's why it's easy to tell when you get blanks or not, because it's like if you're on the guy enough, you should get hit markers just based off of how high the magnetism is.
Yeah. I feel like everybody's experienced at least one 6-shot perfect before, though. So I hear you on that. That really does mean that like one shot just like didn't register in the game system. So yeah. But despite that, we press on. You've been grinding hard, and one thing that I noticed about this game about having like a high skill floor is the fact that with all these abilities, it's kind of confusing on the controller, especially like the default control scheme. The fact that like it kind of plays like Call of Duty, like you aim in with left trigger, you sprint with left stick, you're crouching with like right stick, and that doesn't work. Like the more you play Halo, the more you realize Halo is very different than Call of Duty. This control scheme is actually like kind of horrendous for your gameplay, and that you want to be crouching with left stick, ideally, like maybe even clicking in the right stick to aim down sight and have the discipline. Just there's a bunch of different things. But what I wanted to know is, how do you play the game? So this is the controller time on the episode here. Is if you can show me your controller, show me how you play, and tell me a little bit about why.
So, here's my controller.
Scuff.
I got about 3 more of them right next to me, just in case a couple busted up here.
How long until one of these breaks? Actually, are you allowed to say that?
I mean, honestly, it's just dependent. The bumpers have been an issue before for a lot of like past teammates and stuff. Yeah. My issue is always the paddles just go out, and I think that's I talked to Scuff about it, and it's like my paddles will stop responding every time I press them, and then I have to press them harder and harder, and that's just because they get worn out, and it's just like I use controllers for like around a year, usually, maybe a little less than that, like 8 months to a year, most of the time.
I don't know if this will help you, but I took a little piece of felt and I put it between the paddles and the base of the controller, and I'm trying to preserve the life, because what's happening is you're tearing away at the plastic buttons over time, and then it creates a larger divot, and then the button just stops responding. At some point, you got to press it really hard. So I just try to preserve the life the best I can. It's still going to break inevitably, but it gets me maybe like an extra 2 months or something.
Hey, there you go. Little fixes in there, but So I mean, I play boxer. I think I'm like the last boxer player in the game, and basically my back right paddle here. I don't use all 4. These are just here. I don't even know why. They get support or something. But this one is sprint. This one is jump, and then I did that specifically because those are obviously 2 mechanics you use a lot, and it prevents me from ever taking my thumb off my right joystick, because you obviously always want to have your thumb on your aimer. Yep. You don't ever want to have to remove it just to jump or anything. And that prevented me from having to switch to bumper jumper and all these other settings that a lot of people used. And then basically all 4 of my like shooting is right trigger, meleeing is left trigger, grenade is right bumper, and thrust is left bumper. So basically like all my utility stuff that I need to use in game are up top. So it's pretty easy.
Paddle's probably broken though, because of it's probably your jump paddle that's broken. I can only imagine that's the one that breaks.
Yeah, usually. Well, they both pretty much break around the same time, because when I sprint, I press that button like 6 times. I'm just pressing it over and over and over. Yeah. Okay. But
do you claw for the rest? What about
No, my X is reload and Y is switch weapons, so I don't even really I'll just take my thumb off my joystick for that, because if I'm doing that, then I'm not shooting anyway.
Right, but I guess the only scenario why the Y button is useful to have like as a paddler for the claw is so that you can YY like do all the shotsy crap and Frosty.
Like the fast grenade and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess those are paddles. I don't use it much, but that's one thing I don't implement in my gameplay enough, honestly, is the picking up a second weapon and YYing for grenades.
Yeah. Do you find does your thumb sit in like a specific place on that right stick? Like you try to keep maintain a similar form throughout, or does that change? Like, do you ever think about that? Like, do you use more towards the tip of the thumb? Yeah, right. Yeah, that's pretty close to the tip of your thumb right there.
Yeah, and then I press down pretty hard.
Yeah, because it makes me wonder, because I see a lot of pro players using they're pretty close to the tip of their thumb, and I feel like that gives you really quick, accurate flicks, like really fast, aggressive, accurate flicks. But at the same time, you have to have a lot of spaces between those shots. You have to be very careful, letting that stick return to neutral and then making that quick flick again, as opposed to somebody who's got closer to the center of the thumb would be different. It'd be more of like a sweeping motion or something. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the actual mechanics behind.
I'm curious how Frosty holds his controller, because Frosty and Niquin, because those are 2 players that specifically whip a lot of shots, and I am more like a Royal 2 type of shot, where my aimer just kind of sits there and moves very slowly until I need to whip a shot. I don't Frosty shots, I mean, he'll be like this and like hit all the shit, and then his last shot will whip back up for the And he does that, especially no scoping. He whips his no scopes a lot, and I more so line up my no scopes and all that. So I'd be curious to see like the different type of thumb positioning and kind of how that looks.
I feel like Frosty plays on some sort of like a left hand thing or something. Like he's got either triggers or bumpers or sticks or something swapped. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'd have to figure that out. Shotzi is for sure. Shotzi is for sure.
Yeah, Shotzi is for sure. He plays on the weirdest settings I've ever heard.
Yeah,
like southpaw. Like I don't know. It's like it's weird stuff.
Yeah, it's actually sounds kind of optimal if you can master it, because he's pulling left trigger to shoot, meaning that his aim, he's not sacrificing like anything on that right thumb. Basically, like he gets
it's
the
all
full
reversed.
Potential of his right thumb, basically, because if you're applying pressure through your right index while you're trying to make those flicks, it's a little bit harder to be precise. But with Shotzi, he doesn't have to crumble because he's hitting that left finger for the trigger, and the right thumb has no other extra, stress on it or whatever. I don't know. I think that it's interesting because we continue to like upgrade these controllers and players figure out like their own kind of way to hold it. But I feel like I'm wondering if there's some, optimal type way of doing things that if people learn that from the beginning, then they can, really master the game in the future. But it's nice to see your scheme. Getting comfortable, understanding how the game works and just finding one thing and sticking to it. But yeah, Boxer is something that I don't think anybody else really plays. So it's really cool that you're rocking that. And what's also been happening with Halo is we said it was the end of Halo, and a lot of people are speculating that Halo 3 is coming back around again. So I was wondering also, are you excited by the idea of maybe competing in Halo 3 following Halo 5? What exactly are your prospects, I guess, like between Infinite and the end of Halo 5?
Yeah, I mean, they talked a lot about some possible grassroots stuff, which I'm not even really sure what that means. I don't know if that's like the Microsoft Store stuff. I'm not really expecting anything too crazy in terms of like tournaments, prize money, that kind of stuff. So, I'm excited. I competed in some, if you guys remember the Jaywalk tournaments back in, I think like Halo 4-ish times, there was some of these online Halo 3 tournaments hosted, and they were a lot of fun. I mean, it definitely is enjoyable to go back to a game I, first started competing in and,
dominated it.
I really enjoyed Halo 3. So it's fun to go back and, get some nostalgia there. But, I'm just hoping that there's some stuff that can still build hype up until Infinite. And, I'm definitely going to be interested to hear what kind of information they have in store, but I don't necessarily know how much I'm going to put into that. I might kind of focus on some outside things moving forward, just kind of figure out, what kind of the next step is for myself in a way. But, always going to be waiting and listening on information because, obviously I enjoy and love competing in every way. So, but, I'll still be streaming as much as I can, but definitely going to be working on some outside stuff regardless.
Yeah. I think we're all kind of like, I don't know what the phrase is for this, but we're all kind of like dangling off the edge of a cliff here, just waiting for whatever the announcement is. Like at Atlanta, they said they're going to talk about some new stuff as far as grassroots goes, potential future events, whatever it is, but nothing really big as far as this last one goes. So yeah, you're right. It's interesting. I'm sure a lot of people are doing some contemplating on what exactly they're going to do in between, now and Infinite. And I hope that if Infinite, is successful on launch, that it's one of those games that brings back some of our favorite pro players that kind of dropped out of Halo 5. Like, for example, Roy and Lunchbox, who, they said they retired, but these guys aren't that old. They're like, 27, 28. I feel like they're still, they still got it. Yeah, you're 27. I'm 26, man. I don't know. I feel like all of us still got the drive, the passion, coming back into Infinite. I would love to see Roy and Lunch come back. I know Ogre 2 is still finding ways to keep kicking. He's still a legend at the game, but it would be nice to see, what he could do jumping into Infinite as well. I just want to see, my favorite old pros coming back and playing a Halo game and everybody agreeing and that it's an awesome game and having a good time. But speaking about Halo Infinite, sorry, continue.
No, I mean, I was just going to say, I feel like Halo's lost a lot of the people that got a lot of people into the competitive Halo side. I really don't feel like there's that many left in terms of old pro players that kind of they latch onto the names. Roy and Lunchbox is gone, Ogre 2's gone. I really feel like, Pistola and myself are two of the last remaining OG players. Snakebite's been around for a long time, and then you get Lethal, etc. But everyone else, I mean, on these top teams, really is pretty recently new, and it was during a time when Halo wasn't as popular. So it's kind of people have moved on to other games and never really like latched on to these professionals' names. And, you know, we don't, as a community, really do enough content to create a fan base and a brand for specific individuals and, you know, teams, et cetera. We have orgs that have been in and out of Halo. It's not like, you know, Call of Duty does a great job. There's a lot of players in that scene that have big YouTube channels, big followings, you know, FaZe, Optic, all these giant organizations that really push for that kind of stuff. And I think that has hindered the growth of the esport in general as a whole. You know, absolutely.
No, that's really upsetting too. You're right. Is that I want to see all these OG pros. They were the biggest personalities, but in the end of the day, that is what sells the popularity of these games is the personalities that are playing it, right? It's the Mangos of Smash Bros and you know the nade shot of Call of Duty. But the thing is, that doesn't mean that these young players don't have the opportunity to build up their personalities as well. But none of them are really doing it, which is unfortunate. I'm not really 100% sure why that is. Like I know that Halo 5 has had mixed reception, whatever it is. But like somebody like Shotzi, who is at the top of his game, he's running this game right now. He's playing amazing. Or Frosty, like Frosty uploads the occasional YouTube video, but these guys don't like to be in interviews. They don't really kind of come forward and try to. I mean, apart from grinding the stream grind, which I respect. They're not really big about, you know, personality and showcasing themselves on camera and you know, interacting and being an icon, being a brand amongst the Halo community. And that's the upsetting thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I mean, I'll throw. I don't even care if I throw shots. I was told that, you know, people hate playing against me because I'm passionate and I scream just like Spartan. People give him a hard time because he's passionate and gets behind the game and he does something sick. He's yelling about it and at tournaments, et cetera. And that's fun to watch. Like seeing someone like when I win, I freak out. You know, I do. Like it just I put all this work into it and it's like it all paid off, et cetera. You know, I push a chair, whatever it is. I jump around a little bit, and I think people love seeing that passion. And, you know, I get told by players on Splice and Talks how much they hate playing against me and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And it's just like, it's like, you guys suck at winning. You guys suck at watching outside of the game. You're fun to watch like in game and your game, but you guys suck to watch. And it's just like Splice, you are the worst winners. I don't care how it is. It's like you win a tournament, you sit there and look like your dog just died. It's like unbelievable to me. Dude. It bothers me to like a new level, and that's another reason why it's just like I want to win so effing bad because I hate seeing other people win and have that type of reaction because it's like I care more than you and you're beating me. So yeah, freaking preach, man. Oh my God. Like when Splice, like it's nice their gameplay speaks volumes, but when they stand on that stage and all they do is just press a freaking easy button and say nothing, just like straight face, like it's just another day on the job. It's like, come on, man. Like, how do I passionately connect with anybody on this roster and actually give a crap? Like, I want people who are happy to win the tournament, people who are you know, happy to like give an interview and be like, yo, we fucking worked for this. We're gonna make it happen. You know, like, I don't know. I just think that there's so much potential that could be had there. And one of the really upsetting things and the reason why, you know, Halo 5 doesn't like, there aren't people that really grab onto these teams and are passionate fans of the teams is because the teams don't really do much to you know, ignite that passion. They just accept the award and walk off and don't really exchange any words. They just keep a straight face. So you're totally right. Like that's a huge element of personality. Somebody like Musa, who's pretty brand new to the scene, I've never seen a game face like he's got the crazy, like the most awesome game face when he's popping off. And Musa is a standout because of that. On Trifecta, he was a standout on the roster, not just because of gameplay, but the guy has the personality. He gets into it. He gets going. So like Halo needs that. And then that's how you build fans. That's how you build community. But Splice isn't going to pick up a massive fan base if the members of Splice aren't doing anything to encourage that, right? Yeah.
So literally preach all day. You're so right. And that's why I want to see teams like Reciprocity grab that throne as well. Because I know you guys can carry it. I know you guys have the charisma. You work for it, and when you earn it, it's satisfying for everybody, you know?
Absolutely it is.
Yeah. So moving on towards Halo Infinite as well, just a couple other questions, because one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about even on this interview is I saw a couple of your tweets about the potential of Halo Battle Royale, and I'd love to talk about that just a little bit. Tony, let's throw up that Battle Royale tweet real quick. So Snip3down says, Halo needs a Battle Royale type game mode. It probably has the best lore to go along with it. I know chasing trends is something that has been publicly stated Halo is against, but BR is a model, not something like Sprint or Clamber. So tell me a little bit about this. What do you think of the idea of BR Battle Royale in the future of Halo Infinite, and why?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just feel like the lore is there. There's so many things, and it doesn't have to follow a storyline exactly, which is why I feel like Halo in general doesn't need to follow a specific storyline. The campaign needs to follow a storyline, but the multiplayer and all that doesn't have to follow specifically to this agenda. And I feel like that is like another reason why all these abilities keep getting more and more and more. It's because, the Spartans are just going to keep getting more advanced and advanced and advanced. But it's just like, okay, the multiplayer doesn't have to follow the campaign. The campaign can have all this stuff and add all this cool extra stuff. But I think there's tons of lore. We go all the way back to, ODSTs to Halo 1, and you can have so many different armors. Like, look at all the Rex in Halo 5. Like, these are tons of different armor sets, and then you could have easy cosmetics. You could have, Linda, Buck, and just like all these different cosmetics that you can add, helmets. They can add all this stuff they have in these Rex to the game. If they want to do microtransactions again or something like that, make it be in a Battle Royale section like that instead of in-game pay-to-win on a Warzone style. I think that is where a lot of the slack comes from, because people hate pay-to-win games. Because a lot of people, it's just an unfair advantage for some people. And, I completely agree. I mean, I understand like the whole microtransactions, and I'm thankful for how much they added to the prize pools, et cetera, from all that stuff. But I just think there's so much background stuff that they could do. They could make it so the gas that's in all these other games is the Halo ring collapsing, and you have to get to the final spot, and the last man standing gets away on like a drop pod or gets away on some crazy pod that allows them to get out of there and sends them to like another ring or something. I don't know. And that could be like them leveling up, or being, if it's like an elo system, that could be them gaining into the next segment. I don't know. There's just so many options and so many different weapons now that they've added that it could be really cool. I think a lot of people have like, they tweeted at me and had issues with, sniping would be too easy, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean,
maybe it won't be for Battle Royale.
They need to like, and then people were like, I said something about snipers having a drop off, and I'm like, okay, I don't mean the bullet goes like this, but think of it like a Halo 1 sniper, where the further across on the map they are, the more you have to lead, and it's just like, that's exactly what it would have to be, just like in all these other games that you see people freak out about, like snipe headshots, like Halo 1 was probably the hardest game to snipe in, and the clips that you see, like even like Ogre 2 getting when he still streams that game, it's like, wow, those take skill. He makes it look easy. But they are skillful shots that people will recognize at that high level, and I just think there's so much potential there. They see the market that's right there behind it. I just feel like it's hard not to chase something that has seen so much success and is not slowing down in any way.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember you even said something about them dropping out of a Pelican. And like, I know like you've got like the party bus in Fortnite and like an airplane or whatever in PUBG, but like dropping out of a Pelican is so sick. Like you're so right. There's so much lore in this game that they can play with, so much that they can use for customization. Like those are the types of microtransactions that people would love to see, is like just the almost infinite amount of stuff that they've got from their entire franchise that they could put together as awesome armor and customization. Just the thing that upsets me is like, I understand if people at first glance are like, okay, Battle Royale, doesn't belong in Halo. This isn't authentic Halo, whatever it is. They're afraid of it. I get that you might have that feeling coming into it. But what upsets me is that 343 went out of their way to shoot themselves in the foot by saying that we're not going to have Battle Royale in this game. Like maybe it was a way of trying to cover battle rifle. Like, oh, no. I know. It's like maybe that's a way of trying to comfort your hardcore fans who are afraid of the possibility of BR being in the game and taking away focus from other important elements. Like that's important too. Like as long as the rest of the game is solid in what we expect, then BR should be something on top of that. But don't shoot yourself in the foot and say that it's not even a possibility, because look at the success of Battle Royale, dude. It works in Call of Duty. It works in Battlefield. It works in Fortnite. It will work in Halo. It could be great. And there's another aspect of it that I think is – yeah, and there's this other aspect that's say go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think I don't know if you're going the same ways, but just like the streaming potential and the hype behind all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You got Ninja, who already has shown devotion to Halo and has verbally talked about his dissatisfaction with some of the ways that the game has gone, and that brings him to have an interest in it. And you see the following he's got. You got Shroud, who played PUBG all the time. He's a massive streamer. And now you got Scump, who in the last 2K just had like 65,000 viewers, is getting insane support on the competitive side, to also have streamers like Shroud and Ninja playing Blackout. on a casual side. So it's like you have the best of both worlds in a game like Call of Duty that is now being revitalized in multiple different ways just because of these new additions to the game and going back to their old boots on the ground style of gameplay. And it's like they listened to not only their own feedback from their game, but saw other games, either successes and failures, and built off of those. And it's just like, that's why we're seeing such a hype behind that game right now. And I think it's going to continue.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's like, it's not even just streamers. Like, having the biggest streamers play is so huge, and that'll make the game instantly popular. But it's the fact that it opens up the entire market of PC gamers, honestly, without cannibalizing the console market. That's the beauty of Call of Duty, is that Blackout is the PC gamer paradise. All the hardcore PC guys, they play Blackout. Shroud plays Blackout, Ninja's playing Blackout, whatever. But then competitive is on console. It's on PlayStation. So if you're a competitive guy, you want to play 5v5, you stay on console, and you do not have to worry about a PC gamer coming in and just completely 360 no scope messing you up, whatever it is. So that's the beauty of it too, is there are a lot of Halo players who from forever have been playing on a gamepad. And I know I'm worried about this too. I'm worried about the future of having to go to mouse and keyboard and that being the competitive standard, and knowing that I'm lacking in that area and that it's going to be harder for me to keep up because I have to teach myself mouse and keyboard. I'm not sure if you're a huge mouse and keyboard guy as well. But just knowing that if they have a battle royale mode, that's where the hardcore PC guys get to go, then I can still focus on the console, focus on the gamepad, and have that be the main competitive thing. And Xbox still sells. And like, I just think there's so much win to this, you know?
There is. Absolutely.
Yeah. So man, like, just 343, like, I appreciate the fact that people are upset by the possibility of battle royale, but that doesn't mean you have to just go be like, shoot yourself and say it's not going to be in the game in the future. Cause now what's going to happen? Like, are you going to like try to throw it in and go back on your word anyway? Or are you can do something else? Like, I don't know.
Warzone again. Like what are we going to have here? There's always something extra. It's not just going to be the campaign and the multiplayer, because it's just not enough anymore. Like it's like, all right, this is it. And then people get bored of that. It's like, it needs multiple different options to satisfy multiple different people.
Yeah. It's a big undertaking. So give yourself a blank slate and give yourself all the opportunities to make the best game. Don't axe out things that might actually end up being pretty good in the future. But anyway, so nice that we could just talk about that a little bit, because I'm sure there are other people who agree that there's some good potential here. And honestly, that closes out pretty much everything in the interview. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about. This is my little Kappa pride moment here, and it's going to be hella cheesy. But man, Snip3down, you've always been a good looking dude, but recently, man, you've joined Instagram or something. Something has changed. You're looking suave. Can you, Tony, show the picture? Look at this man. Look at the new Halo hottie. Yo, what's going on here? Did you change your hairstyle? You using a new hair product? Like, what's going on with the new look?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I started talking around, and, apparently the girls like longer hair, and we used to cut my hair too short. I don't know, apparently on me specifically. So that became a mode of concern. So I was like, okay, I'll just grow my hair out again. We'll go back to 08 style and just kind of actually start putting some product in it, and just kind of a little more maintenance on myself than, just sweatpants and gaming t-shirts 7 days of the week. So kind of just, just got to take care of yourself. And it's always good to make sure you're the most important person. You got to take care of yourself. So kind of been gymming a little bit and just kind of making sure I'm healthy, eating better, etc.
That's awesome. Did you want to let the Halo fans in the chat know what kind of hair products you're using, with how the routine works? They can make sure to apply that as well. I'm sorry, man.
I'm not even sure what the product is that I have. I can go grab it. It's right around the corner. But
yeah, dude, let's see it if you want.
All right.
Screw it. Do. That's right, guys. This is no longer a Halo show. This is this is the thing about being a gaming personality, is it's not just about being good at the game. You gotta look the part too. You gotta be a brand, and you gotta every single thing. You're a walking product, okay? So Snip3down's gonna show us what's up. What is that? Union. Looks fancy.
Let's see. It's called.
It's like a wax.
1950s classic men's grooming. Let's see. It just kind of like it's pretty much like a wax almost.
Nice. And you slick it back and hit
pretty
up
much. I started going to a better barber, and then I was like, all right, what do I got to do here? He told me specifically, he was like, don't shampoo your hair every single day because I was doing that for like years, I guess. Apparently that's just not good. You're supposed to kind of let it naturally get a little oily sometimes. And then so I just started conditioning constantly, and he told me to start from the back and then kind of go around, and then when it gets the start from the back and then go to here and then go to the front and just kind of go back with it. So that was I trusted him, and I guess it's been working out for me.
All right. Yeah, man. Honestly, I think it's been working out, and that's the thing, man. At the end of the day, like, we're not always going to be able to be gamers. Like, the shelf life isn't the longest as far as the being in your competitive prime. And at some point in the future, you got to build that whole Snip3down brand. So you're doing a good job, man. I'm sure there's going to be bigger and better things as we continue to move onward into Halo Infinite. I'm excited to have you on this show. I'm excited to see where things are going with Atlanta. I hope you kill it at Atlanta. I'll be happy to see you there as well. I might be making my way over too. Yeah, but man, honestly, thank you so much for joining me. Sorry about we had the 2 separate chunks for this, but I had an awesome time talking to you, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I will look forward to seeing you in Atlanta, and safe travels.
Thanks, man. Sounds good.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much. Yep. Bye.
You guys enjoyed. I know it was pre-recorded, but hopefully you guys had a good time watching it. If at some point in the future I talk to Snip3down again, I'll make sure to get the chat questions in there as well. We can extend that conversation. And I hope you liked my little cap of pride moment. Want to make sure Snip3down knows he's also a handsome dude. He's not just a good player, but so much fun talking to Snip3down. Some real strides we're making with HCS Weekly. Hopefully we can talk to big and just not necessarily bigger, but just some amazing pros on this show to keep that energy going. We got so much planned. Of course, HCS Atlanta is coming up. I know it's the end of the line, but it's going to be a huge event. It's going to be so exciting, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. So excited to be there. And also, you might have noticed I've got a sweater on that says HCS Weekly on it. Pretty sick, right? Pretty sick. This is our swag, guys, our HCS Weekly merch. Not only do we have a hoodie, we got jackets, we got t-shirts. There's a whole selection of options up on screen in front of you. And just so you know, every single item that you buy not only supports the show, it supports me as well. So you can help out Shyway. I would greatly appreciate that, guys. But once again, thank you so much for joining me on the show. This VOD's going to go up on YouTube, so you can watch it back on YouTube again. Hopefully, at some point, we'll have strictly audio version, so you can listen to it at the gym on the go. That would be preferred, especially I know that's how I like to listen to my stuff as well. But anyway, we'll close it off there. Let's give Snip3down that fat host. We'll move it over to his channel. I know he's streaming. He's got some scrims coming up. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.